Hello, welcome to the Health Bridge podcast. I'm your host, Holly B. Today we're talking with Dr. Derek Alessi. Dr. Derek is passionate about body fat reduction and medication reduction and helping individuals improve their quality of lives. His practices incorporate glucose, ketone, body fat, and deep sleep tracking, along with the right kind of diet and intelligent exercise to extend life and improve lifestyle. Dr. Derek is the author of The Bermuda Triangle Diet, Lose Fat Forever, and The Promise Health and Fitness System. Derek has earned a doctorate degree in health and physical education and a master's degree in nutrition. He owns and operates Dr. Derek Health and Fitness, a private practice and personal training facility for adults in East Amherst, New York. He's appeared on over 2,100 TV programs, 400 radio, and 250 podcast programs throughout the country, and has been featured in national print media, including Maxim, Burn Fitness for Women, and Ironman magazines. Dr. Derek is a health, fitness, and lifestyle contributor for USA Today and the host of a weekly TV show on NBC Cleveland and NBC in Buffalo, New York, called Live It Fit Now. And in addition, Derek is the owner and CEO of the sports supplement company Strength Genesis. Strength Genesis is committed to providing products and packaging that are both good for people and the planet, offering the best natural and wholesome dietary products to help individuals improve their health, fitness, and well-being. Dr. Derek's primary clients are in midlife, anywhere from 40 and up, and he's really passionate about helping this demographic of people improve the outcomes and their lifestyles for the second half of their life. Because that is also my demographic, women in midlife, women who are struggling with autoimmune conditions and flare ups. I really wanted to have him on the show to get into detail on some of these topics that he specializes in. We do start out the conversation talking about fat reduction, talking about weight loss, and we aren't focusing here on body image. What we're focusing on is just how fat functions in the body, how insulin and glucose function in the body, and how we can learn the basic math in regards to how our body functions so that we can make different choices and shift our lifestyle to work with our body rather than creating situations that does not optimize our body function. We are going to talk about the steps to improve carb resistance. We're going to talk about how to increase your metabolism. We're going to talk about ketones and the keto diet and basically the easy way versus the hard way you need to get into ketosis. We're going to talk about the importance of getting into deep sleep and why and how that affects your overall lifestyle and your overall health and your weight and fat loss. So we really get into, again, actionable steps and very basic understanding of how to start out in a process of creating that healthier lifestyle. So if you are listening to this and you're coming from the standpoint of, yes, I have autoimmune symptoms that I need to get under control, or if you are just in midlife, realizing you're not physically, emotionally where you want to be, and you're looking to figure out where to start, this episode has something for you. I'll ask before we get into the episode that you please take a moment to like and subscribe to this podcast. That is how we get our podcast out further. And these are such important topics that we discuss on this podcast and on the many other episodes that I have that I am so passionate about getting the word out that we can take control of our health experience. We can take control of our life experience. And by having conversations that I do with the amazing guests that come onto this podcast, we are educating people on how to do that for themselves. Thank you again for taking just a minute to like and subscribe to this podcast. And now let's get on with the episode. Welcome to the program, Dr. Derek Alessi. I'm super happy to have you here and excited for our discussion today. Welcome.
Holly, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. We just realized we're on two completely opposite points of the country, me here in San Diego and you up in Buffalo. So we're covering the entire country here and I love it.
Holly, we're connecting the country right now.
Exactly. Exactly. So you have been working with clients for the past 30 or so odd years, working with clients with weight loss and fitness and overall lifestyle. And we can maybe get into a little bit of your story, but I know for you, you started out with a weight loss story of your own, and that kind of spurred into your passion of helping other people with weight loss and, again, just overall healthy lifestyle changes. Maybe let's dive into your story, and then we'll get into the weight loss discussion.
Yeah, no doubt about it. When people ask me if I always knew I was going to be an exercise scientist and a nutritionist, my answer is no. I started undergrad to be a dentist.
Ah,
I was going to go to dental school. Yeah, no doubt. I was going to go to dental school. And the reason was two reasons. Number one is I had an uncle that had a successful dental practice, and I was going to follow in his footsteps, and he happened to be my favorite uncle. Secondly, because I was 244 pounds in undergrad, and that was very heavy. And it started early in my life, both sides of the family from Italy. So I grew up eating every kind of Italian delicacy you could ever imagine and more. And I had a hard time saying no. And I seemed to really pack it on a lot more than my brother did, who seemed to eat a lot of the same things but got away with it. And we could talk more about carb resistance and so on and so forth later on. But I was very heavy. And once again, going into hopefully dental school, when for in undergrad, I had to take some prerequisites of this brand new field called exercise science. And when I say brand new field, it's not brand new today, but in 1989, when I started undergrad, very few schools had that program. Luckily, I was at a school that did have that program and I had to take it. And honestly, I didn't know there was a science behind exercise. I just felt as though people would do some calisthenics, maybe run, maybe do some weight training. Aerobics were very popular in the 80s, so something along those lines, but I didn't know there was a science behind it. And luckily, I took it because it really interested me, not just in terms of thinking about teaching it for a living, but about getting in shape. I was just unhappy with being so heavy. I didn't want to continue. And boy, it certainly wasn't a healthy way to start life. So, what started off with, you have to take this as a prerequisite, turned into more of a calling, which turned then into a passion, which then turned into a business. And that's kind of what I've been doing over the past 31 years.
and so how long did it take for you to start really incorporating this stuff into your lifestyle and making very noticeable changes in your happiness and your health and your, in your daily life?
It went in stages, but I did try to start doing it immediately. So the first thing that I did, and mind you, I'm an undergrad, so I'm a 18-year-old guy at the time. I started lifting weights, started exercising on a regular basis. So some of my classmates, we would get together and we would do a workout time, not unheard of on campus. And my body started to respond. I started getting stronger. I started dropping weight just naturally. Now, it's awesome when you're an 18-year-old male because you're able to build muscle quickly and burn through a lot of things. At the time, my diet still was bad. I'm going to call it crap. Looking back at it now, it wasn't awesome. And I didn't know anything about nutrition, but just the first step of doing regular exercises, I saw big metabolic benefits, which was exciting. Then I took an extremely conservative leap nutritionally. Now, mind you, this is extremely conservative and it's almost laughable in today's day and age. I just said to myself, I'm not going to eat any quote unquote junk food. I didn't know anything about macronutrients. I didn't know anything about calorie allocation. I didn't know about anything about meal timing. No idea about insulin or carbs or anything else like that. I just said, I'm just going to try to avoid junk food. So between those two things alone, I went from 244 pounds down to about 168 pounds pretty rapidly without doing anything else. Looking back at it, boy, I wish I had that kind of metabolism now.
Definitely. And I'm sure we'll get into that in the discussion. But I, so weight loss reduction is a passion of yours. And it's an interesting discussion because I think the ideas around weight loss have been even politicized recently, just in society and the way we talk about things. Body image is a huge part of that discussion, and being confident and comfortable at whatever size you are. And I think there's a lot of power in that. But I want to approach this weight loss or body fat reduction conversation not from a body image conversation, because I think that's a whole different thing. I want to know more about just the function of the body. I want this to be like a kind of a 101 class on how, what are the different types of body fat, for example? How does insulin and glucose work? Because I think that if we can understand the way the body is meant to function and we can understand what we can do to assist that functioning or to stop that functioning from happening correctly, we can have a different discussion on weight and health, and it can be a little bit easier for us to figure out like, oh, okay, now I understand why and how my choices are affecting my overall life. So why don't we start with what are the different types of body fat, what are their roles, and why should we first respect our fat before we deem it the enemy and relate it to body image?
Yeah, no doubt. And it's a good question. In fact, when people come to see me for the very first time, most people are coming to see me because they do want to drop body fat. There's a lot of other things that they're trying to accomplish with their goals, but that's usually pretty high on their list. And I usually respond when somebody says they want to lose body fat is, that is about the easiest thing you could ask me to help you do. And they're kind of taken aback when I say that because I say, well, no, 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 you didn't understand what I said. I've been telling you that I've been struggling for a long time and I'm up and I'm down and some things aren't working. And I just look at a piece of cheesecake and gain 2 pounds. You're not listening to me. Understood? But mechanically, and the question you're asking me is great because it's totally mechanical here. If you're asking me mechanically, how to drop body fat. Oh my goodness, it is formulaic. It is the easiest thing you can do. In fact, the success is going to be extremely high. Now, at the same time, I am avoiding what you said before, and that is the emotional and psychological aspects of it, which are completely different. And we probably could speak the next 13 hours on that alone and not even scratch the surface. But when you talk about the functionality of dropping body fat, it's kind of straightforward. And the answer is if we can just lower your insulin level in your body, you're going to lose some body fat. Well, okay, the question is, well, how do I lower my insulin level and what is it? What should it be? And what contributes to it? And I think that's part of this whole discussion. But really, we want to do a couple things. Number one is even independent of age, we always are looking to increase metabolism somewhat. And the way we could do that, of course, is not just to be active, but to actively work on improving our muscle tissue, which is metabolically and it burns calories for us 24 hours a day. That's why I said before, being a male and younger when I was 18 years of age, I had an advantage. Men have more skeletal muscle mass than females, and being younger helps everyone. So you're burning a little bit more. So you do want to prioritize and focus on your strength training. Even if you've never done it before, even if you're a beginner, we could talk about some of the things to look for to starting a strength training program that are super important. But you do want to improve your metabolism at any age. That's number one. Number two, though, if we want to incorporate the synergistic effect of nutrition, what we're really looking to do is eat things that don't change our blood sugar levels by too much. Okay, what's blood sugar? Well, it's your glucose. It's your simple, quick burst energy. And that's something that's okay, but most of us don't have a huge need for it unless you're like a collegiate lacrosse player or professional NHL hockey player or something like that. Most of us will never tap into that type of abundance, and we've been storing it for a long time. So we do have to be careful of eating foods that don't change our blood sugar level too much so that we're not storing too much sugar in our liver, because then our body will produce more insulin and we're going to gain body fat, as well as having some of the health maladies that follow along with it. So we do want to be careful of those two things. But once they're in lockstep, and once we get more specific into what the diet is, fat loss is not just straightforward, it's relatively easy and expected.
It's basically like a math equation.
Totally.
Yeah.
Very formulaic. We don't guess when it comes to fat loss. In fact, I'm going to go a step further. I'm going to get extremely specific. If a woman who is anywhere north of 40 asks me, if I have a reasonable fitness program, and we'll talk about what that means, and a reasonable diet, how much fat should I lose per month? And my answer is, over the last 31 years, and we've been recording this, women drop on average 4.6 pounds of fat per month. Not weight, but fat weight. So weight, you could lose more because there's going to be some water in there or some lean tissue in there, but just fat. You could lose 4.6 pounds of fat by doing reasonable fitness and reasonable nutrition. At least I think they're reasonable, and drop a decent amount of fat pretty consistently until you start getting leaner and leaner and leaner, where you have to do more in order to change that number.
So this all sounds really easy when you put it like this. Of course, we can get into mindset and lifestyle and all that stuff. But, there's so much talk about different types of diets. You hear words like ketones and fasting, and people get overwhelmed, I think, really easily with this. So, can you also talk about what role do the ketones have to play in weight loss, and are they naturally in our body? Where do they come from? Do we have to take supplements for this?
Yeah, no, it's a great question too. So most people say, well, okay, if I do that though, I'm trying to burn fat. I want to get rid of the fat that I have on my body. And that's where the conversation of ketones happen.
Really quick, Holly B here. I just wanted to interrupt the podcast to ask you for a quick favor. Can you take just a moment to like and subscribe to this podcast on whatever platform you are listening in on? It makes a world of a difference. And the reach of this podcast, it takes like literally under 10 seconds. So go do that right now. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And now back to the episode.
So I mentioned before that our body would try to use glucose or sugar as the quick burst energy source. We don't want to do that often, especially if we have high body fat percent. We want to burn our stored fat. So first and foremost, I cannot, and I'm going to say this again, I cannot burn fat if my sugar levels in my liver are full of sugar. My body's only going to want to use sugar and glucose for energy and not that stored fat. And that goes for almost any level of exercise. So we've heard the cliche, you cannot out-exercise a bad diet. And as you get older, and if you're a female, and if you're shorter, that is even more true. Okay, so yeah, younger, tall men might be able to get away with a little bit, but for everybody else, self-included, we have to be careful. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how many days per week or double training sessions or how long your workouts are, you're not going to burn fat. But we want to burn fat, so we do have to watch our diet first. Then with that lower sugar level, hopefully we're starting to get into ketosis. So you mentioned ketones. So ketones, or the process of ketosis, is a fancy way. It's a scientific way of saying I'm burning fat for energy, which is a great thing, because that's ultimately what a lot of people are trying to do. I want to burn my fat. I want to get rid of my midsection. I want to get rid of my hips, thighs, and butt. I can't stand this fat on my body anymore, are all things that I hear all the time. And we do want to produce ketones to do it, which simply means your body isn't using sugar anymore. It's burning your stored fat. So the ketones will go into your bloodstream to be used as energy. Now, some people might say, well, wait a second. I've gone to the doctor before. They've done some blood work, or I've had some type of test done, and they always look to make sure that I don't have presence of ketones inside my blood. Correct. They're looking for a diseased state. They're not looking to see if you're just burning some body fat. They're looking to see if you have other metabolic disorders, which most people don't. If you did, you probably would be aware of it. But we are looking to produce ketones by our efforts, not because of disease, but we're intentionally trying to do them because we're intentionally trying to burn fat. So we're looking for the presence of ketones in our blood. So a question that's asked to me quite frequently is, how would I know? How would I know that I'm burning fat? Well, there's several ways to measure it. First and foremost, if you're measuring your body fat on any type of consistency basis, now mind you, I didn't say scale weight, I said body fat. If you're measuring your body fat, pounds of fat or body fat percentage on a regular basis, you could see a trend. And if the trend is going down, you are producing ketones. All right, but how do we know for sure? There's three ways. Way number one is you could go to a doctor, you could draw some blood, and they could measure for the presence of ketones, as I mentioned. There are some home units available now. In fact, a very popular one that a lot of people ask me about, and I even use it myself, is called the Keto Mojo, which you can measure both your glucose and ketones with it. It's pretty handy and it's pretty easy to use too. Number two, which has been around a long time, is you could do urinalysis. There are the urine strips that you can buy at any health food store or online. And in a relatively short period of time, you could see if you have the presence of ketones or fat burning. Number three is there are some machines that you could hook up to your laptop, even iPad, that you could blow into, and it's measuring it from your breath. So it's getting it from your expelled breath, and it's measuring your acetate in parts per million, which is an indication of your ketones. So all of those methods would be a very good way and a very good indicator to see if you're in ketosis, if you're burning body fat. It's a great way to measure. It's a great way to give yourself some accountability, whether you're doing it for yourself or if you're working with a professional that's helping you do it. It's all good ways to know for sure that you're in that fat burning state.
And where does fasting come into play with getting us into that ketosis state?
Yeah, so fasting is one of the ways that we can put ourselves into ketosis. So there's really two ways. Way number one is fasting. If I can go a period of time without consuming food, I will have a heightened state of ketosis. Now, most people that do fasting, they do intermittent fasting, maybe something like 16-8, 16 hours or a window of eating and then 8 hours of not eating, or vice versa. That's probably the simplest way. And when people ask me about it, I'll tell them it just basically, for most people, means skipping breakfast. All right, will that burn some fat? It will. You might register something in terms of these ketone measurements, as I mentioned, but it won't be significant. It becomes more significant the longer you go in a fasted state. So some of the other more common ways to do fasting is 5-2, which means 5 days of eating, 2 days of not eating. There's some every other day fasting, and then some people just go longer term, 3-day, 5-day, 7-day fasting. I am not a fasting expert. I don't even teach fasting to my clients in any way, shape, or form because, in my opinion, it's the harder way to get into ketosis. The easier way that I like to teach is to eat, and to eat 3 meals a day without snacks, and to not even worry about your calorie consumption. However, there is a stipulation because it was sounding too good to be true there for a second, wasn't it?
Yes.
So here, it sounds too good to be true. Oh my goodness, I do that already. I don't worry about my calorie consumption, and I do eat like crazy. Why am I not burning fat? The key thing is when it comes to food, you really only have three choices. Every food you can name is either a protein, a fat, or a carbohydrate. And whatever food consists of more than 50% or more of that macronutrient, we'll call it that. What I mean by that is some foods are combination foods. A good example would be something like cheese, where we put it as carbs, but it does have milk fat in it, and it does have small amounts of protein, but since more than 50% of it is carbohydrate, we'll call it a carb. If we can keep our blood sugar level from changing too much, as I was mentioning earlier, we could get into this consistent state of ketosis over time. So typically, if you could go somewhere between 5 to up to 10 days or so of eating foods that are protein forward, so protein first, fats and carbs, and the carbs are low glycemic or low sugar changing, you're going to get in ketosis, and you could stay in ketosis even at higher calorie counts. You're just eating more chicken, fish, turkey, beef, pork, eggs. You're having more oils, butters. You're eating more vegetables, certain fruits, tree nuts, olives, avocados, coconuts, and you could stay in ketosis for a very long time, weeks, months. Heck, you could do it. You could do it ongoingly for a lifestyle if you keep eating that way.
And that would be considered the keto diet.
It can be. So when we talk about controlling blood sugar, I think the keto diet's probably the most popular, and it's the one that most people have heard of. A keto diet is just eating proteins and fats, but the percentage is 80% fat, 20% protein. Now, who is that good for? Who is it not as good for? Well, I think it's good for people that are just jumping into it. Maybe they've never done a specific diet before, and maybe they don't exercise frequently, especially strength train. Keto could be a good way to jump into it. And whenever you're eating that level of dietary fats, it will satiate your cravings for sugar. So a lot of people can jump into that effortlessly or with the least amount of resistance. Other names, though, for getting into ketosis, heck, if we go back to 1972, we could talk about Atkins and the new diet revolution. Atkins was more of a 50-50 guy, 50% protein, 50% fat, whereas keto was 80% fat, 20% protein. And then what we're seeing now is more and more people that are especially part of the athletic community are eating carnivore, which is still the same thing. It's still proteins and fats, but it's more protein, 60 to 70% protein, and lower amounts of fats, 30 to 40% fats. Now, all of those diets that I just mentioned do not consider eating carbohydrates. There are none for most of them. And a person will ask me, a client will ask me, is that possible? Can you even do it? Will the human body even work that way? And the answer is yes. We ate that way for the first 2.7 million years of human evolution. You really only had two choices. You could fish or hunt. And if you're in San Diego, you could fish because there's water. If you're in Kansas, you're not fishing. You're probably just hunting, right? So fishing and hunting were the prevalent way of all of evolution, and carbohydrate consumption didn't come into much later times. So you could live on protein and fats alone. Now, that being said, I don't teach it just because it's very difficult for people, especially if they've never really watched what they were eating before, to jump right into it. So, Holly, what I like to do is I like to always give the analogy of being in school or being in class. And if a person who says, well, should I try the keto diet right away? If they haven't been eating well, it's kind of like saying, I want to jump into calculus, but I'm really not that good at addition and subtraction. What do you think? And my answer typically is, I think you're going to have a hard time with it, especially doing it for any length of time. And that's why keto has a 97% failure rate after 11 days. So we first have to get the basics down, and it could be simpler than just doing keto, than just doing Atkins, than just doing carnivore. I'm not saying that those systems don't work. They work and they work good, but there's a simpler way for a lot of beginners.
I think a lot of people are very happy to hear you say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I myself have done animal based slash carnivore. I'm pretty much out of it now, although I'm very protein forward, but I did animal based and carnivore pretty strictly for about 2.5 years and saw lots of improvements. But it's not easy, especially if you have a very social lifestyle. So, I think taking your approach is excellent and much easier to follow for the majority of people, because also if a lot of people are coming off of the standard American diet, jumping straight to keto or carnivore is asking a lot, as you said, and there's going to be some growing pains, shall we say. Oh my gosh, I was already eating very healthy, and when I went carnivore and I cut out carbs, I definitely had some of those keto flu symptoms. I had major muscle cramps, and I was already doing electrolytes and all the things, and it still hit me pretty hard. So definitely you don't need to jump into calculus right away. Let's go step by step. Love that analogy.
I'll give you one for the dental community too. As I said, I wanted to be a dentist. So basically this, I don't need you to brush and floss 7 times a day the week before you see the dentist. I'd like you just to do it on a daily basis and be consistent with it. And I think that's the message that I try to give a lot of people, especially once you're north of the about 40, 45, 50, 55 and upwards. I want you to be consistent. There's a time and a place for everything. So yes, protein forward, protein won't change your blood sugar. Yes, we want to eat good dietary fats. Fats won't change your blood sugar, and they're great for your hormones and they're great for your brain. Carbs. So when it comes to carbs, I guess my approach is a little bit of a blend. I'd like to take in some carbs, but I want them to be lower glycemic. So It's more in line with more of a Mediterranean type of approach. We're eating more vegetables, we're having some tree nuts, we're eating some olives, we're eating some low glycemic fruits most of the time. You do have to watch the abundance of those, but it can be put into your daily diet. The things that you must be careful of is the super high glycemic, the super high sugar laden types of carbohydrates that's so easily and prevalent inside the standard American diet. When we talk about eating high sugar foods, high grain foods, when we talk about having things like sweets and ice cream and alcohols, when we talk about things like corn and potatoes, they're going to blow the lid off of your liver, and your sugar is going to go through the roof. Those you have to be extremely careful of for several reasons. Number one, of what I just mentioned, but number two, of course, because it causes this blood sugar level spiking and dipping, which is going to lead to more craving and worse health outcomes as well. So you do have to be very careful of it. But if you did have a strategy and you said, I'm going to have proteins as a priority and eat my good fats, and I'm going to have the good low glycemic carbs most of the time. What if 1 day per week? What if 1.5 days per week? What if a half day per week? I work in some maybe not so good foods or cheat foods, and you could completely do it and still drop your body fat down and still have a decent life without completely turning it upside down by doing that type of approach. So I think then, and I know you mentioned socializing before, if there's a time and a place for it. So if you said, Saturday nights are a big night for me, or Sunday's a big family get together day for me, I think there's a time and a place for it to build it in and still get some ridiculously good results.
Agreed. Yeah. I think looking at those situations as if is this situation where I might eat these potatoes or whatever the sweets might be, is this overall scenario adding to my quality of life today? Is this a special family gathering? Is it a birthday? Is it a holiday? And overall, this is adding to my well-being. Okay, let that be your cheat day. Let that be your day where you do take some of those extra, the higher carb meals. As long as we don't get into the pattern of, oh, today this pint of ice cream in front of the TV is adding to my overall well being. That's where the mindset comes in, I think.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more. In fact, when we talk about strategy, I think you plan certain times on purpose. But what you just mentioned is if something just kind of pops in there, you're at work and somebody brings in something that's unhealthy and it's in front of you, you didn't plan for that. That wasn't part of the deal. That wasn't part of the strategy. That just popped in it and it will happen, but it doesn't mean you have to consume it. So something that I like to express to my clients all the time is just because somebody offers you a cigarette doesn't mean you have to smoke it. It's in front of you, but it's not the time for you. In fact, it might not even be your food or your whatever. So it doesn't mean that you have to consume it immediately. You have to take that into consideration. So I know we're keeping emotions out of it. I know we're keeping the mindset and the psychology out of it, but just from a mechanical point of view, is you need to put together a strategy. And the strategy is relatively simple. If you took 7 days and you said, every 7 days, I'm going to plan, whether it's a social gathering or even if I didn't have anything on the social calendar. You probably have a lot more than me, Holly. You seem very pleasant. People don't invite me to many places. In fact, they usually try to keep me away. So let's say that I didn't have anything, but I just said, on Sunday, I love watching sports or golf or football, or I love being outside. I love inviting people over. That's going to be the day that I have whatever I want. That's part of the strategy. And I think that will work great. And it could really work into your lifestyle. Just be careful. And you decided of things that just pop in there.
Right. And having that strategy helps you take the mindset out of it because you're
Yeah.
focused on the strategy, you're not focused on the emotions. Hey, I just wanted to jump in here and interrupt the program for just a hot minute. You know that I'm so passionate about this podcast, but what I'm also really passionate about is helping women with lupus minimize their symptoms, boost their energy so that they can indulge in life again. So if you are a woman who is struggling with lupus, who is sick and tired of being sick and tired, who's struggling to manage your flares, if you're finding that your lupus symptoms are just really getting in the way of you being able to live your life the way you want to, I feel you. I've been there myself and I felt the same way. And what I've found is that there are a certain set of health fundamentals that, once applied, will support you in your foundational health. They will support you in building and maintaining that energy, minimizing flares, and allowing you to, again, indulge in life and follow your passions. So, if that is something that you are interested in creating for yourself, let's jump on a call together. I will walk you through the process that I use with my clients to get them from sick and tired to strong foundation of health by implementing my Health Bridge protocol. If this is something you're interested in chatting more about, I would love to talk to you. Apply for a free clarity call with me, and I look forward to getting to know you soon. And now back to the episode.
Right.
Mhm.
You have the guardrails on.
Exactly. Let's talk about sleep and how important sleep is towards your weight loss and your health goals.
Yeah, in fact, sleep, I know it's been getting a lot of press lately. There's a lot of talk about sleep. The key about sleep is this, is it's all about the quality. Now, I think more people are getting aware of that because they're wearing their Fitbits, they're wearing their Apple Watches. In fact, even the sleep number beds have it built in where it's showing you light sleep, deep sleep, REM sleep. In general, though, our goal is to try to maintain as much time as possible in deep sleep. And the reason why, of course, is when we're in deep sleep, our body produces something extremely special. It's called human growth hormone. And human growth hormone helps rebuild and repair and refresh our entire body, including our prefrontal lobe where decisions are made. So if somebody has more deep sleep, they're making better nutritional and exercise decisions, better lifestyle decisions, and it's easier to make sure that you're not eating the wrong things and you're diminishing cravings. In addition to that, it helps rebuild and repair your muscle tissue better too. So when I was talking about muscle tissue being your metabolism, it gets repaired in your deep sleep. So, two extremely important reasons why you have to make sure that you're doing it. Um, and lastly, it lowers your stress levels. In fact, I know I limited just to three different reasons of sleep. There's much more than that, but those are three really big reasons of why you'd want to make sure that you're maximizing your deep sleep. Now, a lot of people don't realize this, but if you wanted like some of the best ways to disrupt your sleep, in fact, something I'll say to my clients, Holly, is do you want me to teach you how to have the worst, crappiest night's sleep ever? Because I can teach you that. And the answer is make sure that your insulin is all over the place when you're going to bed. And you could do that by either having sweets or ice cream or grains, or a real good one is alcohol, because all of it will change your insulin level so much that you will fall asleep quickly. But oh my goodness, you will not stay asleep. You will be up frequently. You will have temperature regulation issues. You'll be flipping the pillow over because you're sweating, covers on, covers off. You'll be up to go to the bathroom several times a night. And in the morning, you will feel like a zombie because you did not sleep well.
Mhm.
So be extremely careful of the carbohydrate, insulin, alcohol situation as it gets later in the day because that will disrupt it quicker than almost anything else.
So, if you're going to choose to have some carbs or maybe some rice or potatoes with your meal, wait that to earlier in the day, not at dinner time.
I would reverse the order of it. You've heard it a little bit before, so it's interesting. I've always heard people talk about it in our community. We hear it all the time. Oh, if you're going to eat something bad or high glycemic, do it earlier in the day so you can burn it off. I would disagree with the rationale behind it, but I would agree with the strategy. And I would say do it earlier in the day so it doesn't affect your sleep. There is really no evidence that you're going to burn it any better if you eat it earlier in the morning. So don't think that you're cheating your metabolism some way, shape, or form. It's not going to happen. Your blood sugar is still going to go up. You're still going to produce insulin. You're still going to hurt your fat loss efforts if you take in high glycemic carbs early in the day as if you took them in later in the day. But the one thing it won't affect, though, is going to be your sleep, especially that deep sleep. So, yes, I would follow that strategy. And secondly, I would wear your Fitbit. I would wear your Apple Watch. I would look at your numbers several times per month just to make sure that you're getting in my opinion, if I could give the perfect ratio for an adult, about 50-50 in terms of percentage of your sleep. So as an example, if you were to sleep 8 hours, it'd be great if half the time was spent in light, half the time that's spent in deep. And when I look at deep sleep, I'm adding REM sleep to it. So light sleep by itself, deep sleep plus REM sleep equals all deep sleep. If I'm 50-50 or greater, I'm going to feel pretty good in the morning. If I'm 50% or less, which a lot of people are, then you start getting into the hours game where you don't feel refreshed after 7 hours. You don't feel refreshed after 8 hours. You don't feel refreshed after 9 hours. And then you're constantly tired. And you think, well, geez, I'm constantly tired because I work too hard or I'm too stressed out or, I'm exercising too much. It is not that at all. It is your sleep. So make sure that you're measuring your sleep. And if you're a 50-50 or greater, you're doing wonderfully.
Now, to switch gears just a little bit here, I know you help your clients a lot with medication reduction. And my guess is that the medication reduction is more of a result of doing these lifestyle changes rather than that's what you're specifically working with them on. Can you tease that out for us?
Yes, but when you brush and floss all the time, you don't have any cavities. Yes, exactly. When you do your homework and classwork, you get good grades in school. So you're right. It's part and parcel of the lifestyle. So now we're exercising, we're building muscle, we're being consistent with it, maybe 3 or more days per week. Now we're watching what we're eating. We're making sure our blood sugar levels are relatively consistent. We're prioritizing proteins and dietary fats. We're staying away from high glycemic carbohydrates. We have a strategy. We have a cheat day. We're looking at our sleep. Our sleep levels are improving. We're waking up in the morning. We feel less mental fog. We feel a little bit more refreshed. We have a little a spark in our step. All of these great things are happening. And all of a sudden, if blood glucose was a problem, if diabetes was a problem, it's becoming better. If thyroid, especially hypothyroidism, was prevalent, all of a sudden it starts to be more optimal. If blood pressure was a problem as we're dropping body fat, it starts reducing. So those are the big three medications that many people are on. Already those are starting to improve. So yes, as I'm getting in better shape, as I'm feeling better, as I'm doing the right things, all of a sudden I could start looking at my medications. I could start having legitimate conversations with my physician, and I could start saying, hey, is this a time that we could start looking at reducing medication? Which is, of course, is the conversation the physicians would rather have. What I do teach my clients to not do is to don't go in and talk to your physician and tell him or her what you plan on doing in the future, and you should reduce your medications now. They don't want to hear that because they've heard that promise way too many times, and they will shut you down. But they can't deny if you've been doing the right things, if you're showing evidence that you are improving, that you're presenting him or her with body fat numbers that are improving, to then take a look at it because you've already done the work. They're much more receptive to having that conversation, and you're going to find it much easier to be able to express what you're looking to do.
Have you worked with women with autoimmune conditions? And because I know you do fitness as well and strength training, and I know that there can be more challenges due to lots of pain, lots of joint issues, fatigue. Have you seen improvement in the women you work with that have autoimmune conditions?
Yes. And the one that I see most common would be Hashimoto disease. Now, of course, Hashimoto being an autoimmune disease, I'm not going to say, hey, listen, we'll do these 5 things and we'll cure it. That's not going to necessarily be the case. But can we improve it? Can we treat it without medication? And the answer is, of course, we can make the body a lot more efficient. So whatever autoimmune we're looking at, it still follows the same type of body systems principle. If I can improve my metabolism, if I can improve my lean muscle tissue, if I can nourish my body with the right food so that my blood sugar levels aren't going over the place, I'm making it easier on my system. So ultimately, a big conversation I have with a lot of clients is I want to make tomorrow easier for you than today. Tomorrow should always be set up to be easier. And we can do that by following these principles. Now, what will that do over time? If I have more muscle, if I have more bone density, if I'm producing hormones better because of not just my activity, but because of my nutrition consumption, I'm going to be less reliant upon medication. I'm going to show less symptoms of the autoimmune disease itself. I'm going to be able to overcome more. My body's going to be stronger and better functioning. All right. So we might not necessarily have the next great cure, but you are doing miles of goodwill towards yourself, though, by improving what we just talked about with your fitness and nutrition so that we're not putting more pressure on the system. And that goes for autoimmune disease over many different conditions. I know I just really highlighted thyroid. That's the one that I work with the most, and that's what I see the most often. But all of them are going to improve because of it.
So, to tie this all together as we come to a close, if our listeners are out there and they're like, okay, I know that I need to make some changes. I do have, a few extra pounds. I'm in midlife. My hormones seem to be fluctuating. Like, I got to take some action here. How do we kind of assess our starting point and where to move forward? Because I know we just talked about a lot. And while it's simple in theory, where do you start with your clients? And what's the kind of basic steps of starting this?
Yeah, so a couple of ways. First and foremost, in school is always easier if you have a teacher. I'm not saying that you can't go out and buy all the textbooks and buy all the laptops and computers and everything and give yourself an education, but oh my goodness, it just became 10,000 times harder. So if you do have a guide, and the guide could be many different things. Some physicians are capable of pulling this off, many are not. I think anybody in fitness, anybody in nutrition, anybody in accountability, if you happen to offer all of them, which is something we try to do in-house, you're going to have the best of all worlds. You have more help. So the more help you have in this whole thing, the better you're going to do, the quicker you're going to get results, and the less chance you're going to have of failure, which of course is very important. Now, if you said, that sounds good, but what small things can I do right now just to help get this going and just start today? And the answer is really do two things. Build some muscle tissue, even if it's not in a gymnasium or anything formal, even if you're doing push-ups, if doing planks, if you're doing some air squats, if you're doing some crunches, it's a good place to start. You just want to be consistent with it. And number two is look at your diet, avoid the high glycemic things, get rid of the grains and the sugars and the alcohols and the sweets and all of those types of things, and start nourishing your body with proteins and good fats. If you do those two things alone, you'll already start the process of moving in the right direction. But I'm still going to go back to my first answer, and please get help, and the sooner the better, because you'll start reaping the results.
And the accountability factor of having that guide is priceless. I'm speaking from experience.
It is in every facet of life. So there's this great irony. And the irony is the people that need the most help are typically the beginners that know the least. However, the people that usually get the most help are the ones that are most advanced. So we can learn something here. Now, I'm going to give an analogy, and that is of golf. In golf, it's not uncommon for somebody who's just a weekend warrior to say, I don't need any golf lessons. I just need to go to the range and figure things out. However, there is not a golfer in the world that's any good that doesn't have at least one coach. And the better the golfer is, the more coaches they have. It's the same in school. If you were working on postgraduate degrees, you would have more professors and more teachers. It's the same in everything. In business, it's the same way. The most successful companies have all types of consultants and accountabilities and procedures and checks. So if you ever want to get advanced, follow what works in every discipline. And that is having somebody help you, having teachers, having coaches, having mentors, having accountability, and you will do so much better. Do not take this burden on yourself and don't think as though it's relatively easy and you're going to just figure it out. Get some help early on and you're going to do so much better.
Dr. Derek, where can everyone find you?
All of my information is at my supplement company website, which is strengthgenesis.com. And the supplement company I'm going to add is twofold. It's really a food company. We have what we call the world's healthiest cooking oil and the world's greatest salad dressing. Neither one of them will change your blood sugar level at all, and they're both all natural ingredients. But we also have everything else, such as New Zealand grass-fed protein. We have Icelandic deep water pharmaceutical grade fish oil, all good products and all sustainably packaged because we don't need more plastic in our body or in the environment. So if you go into a health food store, most things are in plastic. Not good for the body, terrible for the brain, not good for the environment. We put everything in glass, we put everything in metal. So it's better for the body and better for the planet. So you can check everything out at strengthgenesis.com.
Thank you so much. This was such a great conversation. I know it's going to set so many people on a better path. So thank you so much for being here.
Holly, my pleasure. It's really been a joy to be on today. And please say hi to all of my friends in San Diego.
Will do. So, what my takeaway is from this episode is that health is a strategy, but when you really get down to the details, it's common sense and it's just listening and learning to how your body is meant to function and how can we assist that process by making choices that will assist the body in its natural processes or making choices that will create more of a dysregulation and a disharmony because we are going against the natural flow of our system. So starting with just those simple steps that Derek laid out for us at the end there, just starting to focus on better quality of sleep. Like if you just had to choose one thing to start with, focusing on how can I create better sleep? And that might look like shifting your dinner time earlier by an hour or reducing carbs at nighttime. Just that alone could make such a huge difference in your sleep patterns. And like he said, when you have that more restful, deep sleep, your overall health is going to be better. Your brain function is going to be better. You'll make clearer decisions throughout the day. You won't be rushing for the or grabbing for the extra coffee, for the extra sugar and carbs to give you that boost of energy that you're lacking because you didn't sleep well. It will reduce inflammation in your body. It will improve overall hormone functioning in your body. And it sets the stage for all of the other healthy decisions and lifestyle changes to follow. We talked about the steps to improving your carb resistance, improving metabolism. We talked about just focusing on some simple strength training. We talked about ketosis and the easy way to get into ketosis. And I think these are all just such simple steps that you can start using for yourself. And when you're ready, I totally agree with Derek on accessing or utilizing a coach of some sort that can guide you on this process to fine tuning those details to work specifically for you and what your current situation is to get quicker results towards your health and lifestyle goals. For me, it's been just a huge benefit in so many different areas where I've had coaches, whether that's health coaching or business coaching or life coaching. I think it's an invaluable tool. Dr. Derek is available to consult with. So, of course, I am going to plug myself here with my coaching program because the reason I'm so passionate about helping women on their health journey, helping them with their autoimmune condition and reducing those flares is because I have gone through it. It's been a 20-year journey for me to figure out how to improve my health and lifestyle to the point where I am much more highly functioning and much happier and feel so much better than I used to feel when I was struggling with a constant weak immune system, just debilitating fatigue and lupus flares on top of that. I'm passionate to help other women reduce that learning curve. It shouldn't take us 20 years to figure this stuff out, right? Figure out the basics of just how to support your physical body processes, your mental and spiritual processes in order to create a healthier lifestyle and experience. So, I would love to get to know a little bit more about you and just see what your story is, see what your health journey has looked like. Let's chat for just a quick 10 minutes. I would love to get to know you some more. The link to chat with me is in the show notes, and I look forward to meeting you. I also look forward to having you join us again on the next episode of the Health Bridge podcast.